In the quiet town of Willow Creek, just outside Atlanta, Georgia, lived Mrs. Josephine Howard, a 78-year-old black widow whose calm and gentle presence seemed to soften even the harsh summer heat. She had lived for decades in the modest brick home she once shared with her late husband, Julius, a proud Army National Guard sergeant and construction worker who had built the house with his own hands. In the backyard was their pride, a sparkling in-ground pool, a symbol of their years of hard work. For Josephine, it was more than just a place to cool off. It was her peaceful retreat. She often sat at its edge with her feet in the water, reading her worn Bible, praying, or watching the clouds drift over the shimmering surface. But the neighborhood was changing. Wealthier newcomers were moving in, fixing up houses, and bringing an attitude that clashed with the simple, close-knit spirit of the old community. One blazing Saturday afternoon, Josephine met her new neighbor, a sharply dressed blonde woman, flanked by two friends who looked just like her. The woman's sneer appeared the moment she spotted Josephine's pool. "Seriously? A pool in this house? This neighborhood's going downhill," she said, making her friends laugh cruelly. Josephine froze, saying nothing. It was only the beginning. In the days that followed, Josephine noticed cold stares and heard whispered remarks. Then one morning, she found a note slipped under her iron gate. "A pool like that doesn't suit people like you. Sell the house and move somewhere more fitting." She tucked the note away without answering, though the sting stayed with her. Later, while relaxing by the water, she overheard a voice from beyond the fence. "Still using that thing at her age? She should be wearing a burqa." Laughter followed. Josephine quietly went inside, dignity intact, but her heart aching. Then came the real invasion. Returning from the farmer's market, she found her neighbor and friends in her pool, splashing, drinking, and blasting music. "What do you think you're doing?" Josephine asked, her voice shaking. The neighbor shrugged. "You hardly use it. We're just enjoying what you waste. This is my property. Get out now." "Oh, don't be so dramatic. Sharing is Christian, isn't it?" After they left, Josephine called the police, but the officers said that without direct confrontation, there wasn't much they could do. That night, holding a photo of Julius, she wept, not just over the pool, but over the violation of her home and spirit. Days later, another note appeared. "An old black woman with a pool is an eyesore. Sell before we start a collection." Josephine prayed, then took action. She began keeping a detailed log, every insult, every trespass. Quietly, she installed small cameras to capture everything. The pool became their playground, the neighbor and her friends treating it like a public pool, jumping fences, blasting music, and recording videos for social media. Josephine said nothing. She simply watched, recorded, and prayed. "She's too old for all that space." One neighbor sneered in a video, not knowing a hidden camera was watching. "It should belong to people who appreciate it, like us." But behind Josephine's calm was unshakable strength. Her life, her legacy, her dignity, none of it would be stolen. One Sunday, the blonde neighbor banged on Josephine's door, complaining about a sidewalk she said was messy. Josephine offered help, but the neighbor's words dripped with insults. That afternoon, Josephine heard the side gate being forced open. 5 young people, friends and neighbor, jumped into the pool with champagne bottles, filming themselves as they splashed. Josephine watched from inside, silent but with tears in her eyes. The next day, she took her evidence, videos, notes, recordings, to the county clerk's office. The young clerk's eyes widened. "Mrs. Howard, this is criminal trespassing, harassment, and racial prejudice. We'll help you." Then came the day no one saw coming. On a noisy Saturday, as the neighbor hosted another wild pool party, a helicopter appeared over Willow Creek. It landed on the concrete pad Josephine and Julius had once prepared for emergencies. Out stepped a tall man in a dark suit, streaks of gray in his hair, carrying an air of authority. He walked straight to Josephine's gate. The neighbor froze. Guests whispered and pulled out their phones. "Who is this man?" someone asked. Josephine smiled. "Welcome, brother." He embraced her. Dr. Arnaldo Noguera, a respected constitutional law scholar, human rights advocate, and Supreme Court consultant, spoke firmly. "Josephine, my sister, tell me who dared to make you cry." The blonde neighbor's face went pale, her hands trembling. She had mocked and bullied Josephine. But now, one of the most powerful men in the country was standing at her door. That weekend, Josephine's story hit the news. Every detail came out: the insults, the harassment, the trespassing. The truth was public, and the slow but steady wheels of justice began to turn. Still, Josephine's fight was far from over. The quiet strength in her eyes showed there were more battles ahead. Hidden truths yet to surface, and justice that would reach far beyond the fences of Willow Creek. The morning after Dr. Nogueira's arrival, the neighborhood felt different. People whispered behind blinds, some even crossing the street to try and learn something from the few staff now visiting Josephine's home. But she stayed silent, her power resting in quiet dignity, and now, with her brother at her side, in the steady weight of justice to come. 2 days later, a legal notice arrived at the blonde neighbor's door. The woman, used to ordering around caterers, boutique owners, and household staff, stood in shock. The notice summoned her to a conciliation hearing for trespassing, racism, emotional harm, and repeated harassment. She laughed it off to her husband. "She probably just wants money for a new pool float," she scoffed. What she didn't know was that Dr. Nogueira had personally arranged for one of the top law firms in the country to take the case. The evidence was undeniable: videos of the intrusions, audio recordings of the insults, printed copies of the racist notes, and testimony from other neighbors who, inspired by Josephine's courage, came forward with their own stories of intimidation. The neighbor tried to defend herself, calling it all a misunderstanding, saying she never meant to offend. But her words crumbled when the court played a video on a large screen. Clearly drunk, she sat by Josephine's pool, sneering. That old black woman should be grateful to have pretty people using her pool. This is wasted luxury. The courtroom went silent, except for a few gasps of disgust. The judge leaned back with a sigh, her face set in disapproval. The verdict was quick. The woman had to pay substantial damages for emotional harm, issue a public apology, and stay away from Josephine's home or face a steep daily fine. The apology had to be recorded on video, posted online under court supervision, but the effect went far beyond legal punishment. Josephine's story spread nationwide. The following Sunday, a news crew came to her door. A graceful journalist with a gentle voice asked for an interview. Josephine hesitated, but Dr. Nogueira encouraged her. "America needs to hear your voice. Not for drama, but for hope," he said. And so, seated by her pool in the blue dress her late husband had loved, Josephine shared her story on national TV. Her eyes shone with unshed tears as she said, "We spend our lives working for a little peace. When prejudice takes that peace away, it cuts deep, but God sees everything. I am proof that silence can speak, and sometimes it screams." The video went viral, gathering millions of views in days. Celebrities commented. Anti-racism groups rallied around her. Josephine became a symbol of dignity and strength. Meanwhile, the racist neighbor's world collapsed. Online protests swarmed her social media. The catering companies she owned lost contracts. Boutiques dropped her name from their preferred lists. Her pride turned to shame. A month later, the story came full circle. On a gray Saturday, the same helicopter that had brought Dr. Nogueira returned. But this time, it was for more than a visit. He had organized a small gathering to honor Josephine's victory. Lawyers, journalists, activists, and faith leaders attended. At the entrance, a simple banner read, "This pool is a symbol of struggle. Here, justice took a dive." Josephine sat in her wicker chair, now surrounded by people who had traveled far to thank her and stand beside her. During the event, the neighbor drove by slowly, her eyes wide at the sight of cameras, the crowd, and the woman she had tried to humiliate now being celebrated. She sped away, trying to hide her face, but a camera caught her fleeting expression, and the news captured the contrast. On one side, an elderly black woman with a gracious heart. On the other, a white woman now silent and defeated. At the end of the celebration, Josephine rose and walked to the pool's edge. Her voice was steady. This pool was built with love, not to belittle, not to show off, but because every person deserves dignity, even if they're black, even if they're old, even if they live among people who think they're better. She paused and added, justice didn't come with shouts. It came with faith, patience, and proof. And it came from above, from the sky in a helicopter. The crowd chuckled softly with respect. Some wept, others applauded. From then on, Josephine swam in her pool every morning, not out of need, but in celebration. It was her victory ritual. The neighbor moved away quietly months later, her name becoming a warning of what not to be, while Josephine became a reminder of what we must always strive to be: dignified, even when others try to strip it away. Her story proves that the quiet strength of a wise woman can silence the loudest arrogance, and that dignity is priceless. Justice, when it arrives, can hush even the most insolent voices.